So this is a $19 knife. Exactly which direction they're going. Nice little edge there. So we can see. Yep. Yep. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing very well. So today I want to talk about this guy. This is the cheapest full tang fixed blade knife I could find that fits my hand, and we're going to see if it's worth rescuing. Let's talk about it. Alright guys, so like many of you would know, a knife is probably your best friend when you're going camping, and not all knives are created equally. You know, that's kind of obvious as well. I've got a little bit of a collection of knives starting here, some kitchens, some hardware, some sort of heavy duty knives, and at my most recent camp I realized that my two main knives are actually quite blunt and my kitchen knife is a bit useless as well. So I'm going to sharpen those today and get them back to pristine condition, but it also got me thinking, you know, these knives are all quite pricey. Is it possible to go to a camping shop to buy the cheapest knife they have and turn it into a reasonable bushcraft knife? So something you can baton with, something you can shave wood with, something you could do, you know, the everyday tasks that most people do at a campsite with a knife. So I wanted to test that out today. So I went to my local camping shop and I picked up this little guy. So this is a $19 knife. It's they told me at the shop it's carbon steel. I don't know if it is. The box that it came in had no branding, no origin, no made nothing. It had no information at all. So I don't know if this is carbon steel. It feels like it, but you know, that remains to be seen. It's a very good looking knife. It's quite pretty and it fits my hand reasonably well. It's got a good sort of thumb support. We can really get some torque in there. The paracord wrapping that's on here is absolutely atrocious, so we're gonna have to replace that as well as the sheath. The sheath is largely useless and I don't feel safe carrying this on my person, so this will have to live in like my backpack or somewhere else. But yeah, I might replace the sheath as well if the knife is worth it. So what we're going to do today, we're going to sharpen this up to as much as I can get it sharpened, and we're going to test it out on some batoning and maybe some wood shavings and trying to get something going. So we'll see how that goes. I also want to see if this could be a reasonable backup kitchen knife, but yeah, it'll take some doing to get it there. So guys, what I think we're going to do, let's just get started with it. I'm going to start with this guy. This is the main focus for today. So we're going to do that using a knife sharpener that I've had for probably 7 years. It's great. It's let's put my wipes away. It's by a company called Lansky, and they make really high quality knife sharpeners. Now it is a slightly manual process, so I'll show you how it all works and how it fits together. So that just rests on there. The knife clips into here, and then you've got these various little sharpening stones that you use. So we're just going to get a couple of those going. I'm going to grab a little bit of tape here, and I'm just going to put it onto the end of the onto the outside of the blade. There we go, just like that, just like so. All right, so I don't know if you guys know about this, but all knives have a different knife profile. So where the blade meets the tip, that angle determines basically how durable that edge is going to be. So if you look at a knife like my Schrade here, so the blade itself is 1/2 centimeter thick. All right, so it's a big old piece of metal. But if you look at the, I'll try to show you here. If you look at the blade profile, the angle between the blade and the tip is quite acute. So this is a rather durable kind of edge. It's not a very fine edge. It can still be as sharp as you want it, but it's not a super fine edge, so the blade isn't going to get damaged. You're not going to lose you're not going to lose sharpness very, very fast. So I want something between my Schrade and my kitchen knife. So we're going to have a look and see at what angle they've actually created this edge here. So how do you know when you're done? Well, as the blade comes to a point, as you're sharpening it, you'll be pushing metal kind of over that point. So if you run your fingers from the opposite edge upwards, you should feel that little burr. When you start feeling that burr, it means that side's done. You flip the knife over and you go the other side again. But we're not there yet. There's a long ways to go. So I'm probably going to speed up through all of this, and I'll bring you back when it's time for the other side. All right, let's keep going. Alright, boys and girls, so that took a little bit of time, but I've managed to put a new bevel, a new burr completely across the one side, and I'm going to try and show you here. As you can see, that blade profile now is significantly wider, so there's much more silver metal exposed. I hope you can see that. So now what we have to do is we've got to do the other side and create a burr going from that direction as well. So we're going to flip this knife over, put it back on our sharpening, and there we go. So this should take just about as long, maybe about 10 minutes or so, but then the rest of the process becomes a lot faster because we've now already created a new edge. So let me get started here, and I'll bring you back when this is done. Alright guys, so I've successfully reprofiled the blade. I had a burr going from one side, flipped it over and did the other side, and now I have a burr on that side as well. So I'll just really quickly show you here what it looks like. So I hope you can see that, but that edge is much wider, so it's a completely new blade angle. So now what we need to do is we've created a new edge. The next thing we got to do is start refining that edge, because the metal now is going to be incredibly rough and it's going to be quite fragile. So we want to start removing some of those jagged edges and start cleaning that profile up. So the smoother the edge of that blade. So guys, I'm moving on to my medium diamond stone. So we've just finished with the coarse stone. So that's what we used to reprofile that blade. We went from, I think it was a 25 degree down to a 20 degree, or 17 degree actually. So that's going to give me a much taller blade surface and much finer edge. But because we've reprofiled it, there's going to be deep gouges in that blade now. So now the next part of the process is to start smoothing that bit of metal out. The smoother you can get it, the closer you'll get it to a razor sharp edge. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to start on this one side. I'm going to do the same process until I can feel a burr coming across, and then flip it over and we do it again. So let me show you here what it looks like. So now I don't have to put nearly as much pressure, and what I'm doing is I'm creating little lines, striations in the blade, and I'm making sure all of those striations are running in the same direction for a couple of goes until I can't see lines in any other direction anymore. They're all just running in the same direction on the blade surface. And once that's done, then I change my angle and I do it again. So I'm basically creating a crisscross pattern on the blade, and then I'm going to go until I can't see the previous direction's lines anymore. I might do that 1 or 2 times. Time to test. Now we've got to feel if there's a burr. Oh yeah. Great, there's a burr running all the way across. So we're going to flip the blade over and do the other side. So once again, starting in one direction, until that direction's lines are the only lines I can see on the blade. It's actually quite easy because as you're doing this, the steel, the blade material is quite dark, and that goes into the little grooves so you can see exactly which direction they're going. So that's the medium diamond done. So now we move on to the fine diamond. So the fine diamond is really intended to completely and utterly smooth out the edge of the blade. So I'm just going to get this guy on here. There we go, and I'll do a little bit more oil on here. As you can hear, it's a completely different sound now. Now we're polishing that blade. We're no longer reprofiling it, we're no longer sharpening it, now we're just polishing. Trying to remove as much of the imperfections as we can from that blade surface. I don't know if you can see this, but just look how much more shiny and smooth that blade is now. Test for a burr. And basically we've already got a burr on the side, but I'll just refine it a little bit more, just very gently. I'm almost using no pressure, guys. Just polishing this blade up very nicely. I actually think this might be a decent knife. It's sharpening up very well. There we go. I've got a full burr all the way through that side. Let's flip it over. And let's do the other side. Very, very gently now. Almost no pressure at all. I'll show you what it looks like. So this knife edge is already going to be very, very sharp. So if you're doing this at home, please be careful. It's very, very sharp. I'll show you what this looks like. I hope you can see that. Yeah. That is a very, very nice little edge there. Alright guys, now we go on to the final and probably the most important step, the sapphire stone. So the sapphire stone is literally intended to give a mirror finish on the blade. So that is going to make sure that it is as smooth and as sharp as it can possibly be. Now, depending on the quality of your work up to this point, the sapphire stone could completely make that blade unstoppable. I'm pretty happy with what I've done so far. So now we're going to put the sapphire blade in, and we're very, very gently going to start polishing this across the entire surface of the blade until we can no longer see any striations, because I want this edge to be as smooth as a mirror, and it shouldn't take too long. Alright guys, there we go, that's done. That blade is now as sharp as I can possibly get it. Now, I'm sure some of you who've been doing this a little longer than I have will be able to get that thing sharper. But, you know, for a bushcraft knife, yes, obviously you do want to have it sharp, but it doesn't have to be ridiculously sharp, because that also kind of poses a bit of a risk to your person as well. You want a knife that is sharp enough to do whatever you need it to do without being a significant danger to yourself. So what we've done here today is we have gone and got ourselves a $20 knife, which in my opinion is it's an absolute bargain. Now, they told me that this knife is carbon steel, which is what you want to look for in a knife. I have no way or idea to confirm that, but during the sharpening process, it did feel familiar, so I imagine it is carbon steel. But let me show you what this blade looks like up close. So guys, I hope you can see this. Look at that. It is perfectly shiny, perfectly uniform, beautiful edge. And that took me about, maybe all up it took about half an hour. But keeping in mind, we had to completely reprofile the blade. And I actually think this is now going to be a very reasonable, very reasonable knife, actually. So there's a couple of ways that we can now test this knife. Now, we've just spent half an hour sharpening it. It seems ridiculous now to go and destroy the edge, but I want to see how durable it's going to be. It looks fairly evenly profiled. It looks pretty good. So let me see if I can get some of the hair off my hand, which is like one of the standard things people do. I don't know why they do that, but let's see if it'll work. So I hope you can see this, guys. Yep. Easily. Look at that. Look at that. That's pretty impressive. Cool. Alright, so the next thing we want to do is, I think let's baton some wood, see if this will go through it. Which of course it's going to, but I actually want to see what it does to the edge we've put on there. That's actually what I'm more interested in. So I'm going to grab some wood and I'll bring you back. Alright guys, so before we do the wood and all of that sort of stuff, I wanted to show you just the baseline of how sharp this knife is so we can compare it to afterwards. Now, a lot of people will cut a piece of paper, which is ridiculous because paper offers too much resistance. So I've got here a sort of a very ripe tomato. So we're going to see if we can get through the skin here. Oh yeah, look at that. Perfectly smooth. Amazing. Alright, so that's how sharp this blade now is. I'll show you from this side as well. Let's see if we can get a nice thin sliver. That's awesome. That is perfectly sharp. Look at that. On a very soft ripe tomato. Alright, I'm going to clean this up. Alright guys, here we go. So I've got a couple of sort of bits of kindling here. So I'm going to try and baton this first little bit. And then we're going to see what it did to the edge. So let's see if this goes through. That was reasonable. Let's go again. Yeah, that's pretty good. Let's go one more time. So I'm trying to strike it at the same point at the blade. Cool. Alright, that's pretty good. Now, let's try and get a little fire stick. Alright, let me just grip this thing properly. So I'm going to try and use the same side of the blade. It's nice and sharp, guys. I obviously need more practice with my feather stick making. Don't judge me on that. Now I'm trying to use slightly more of the blade surface. so we can see if there's any difference. Cool. All right. So I think that's pretty much quite a bit of damage on this blade. So if it was a high quality blade, it wouldn't have lost too much of its sharpness. If it's a low quality steel, this thing's going to be pretty blunt now, especially at the arc of the blade. So let's have a look. Alright guys, so I've cleaned up the carnage a little bit. So I don't know if you can tell, but there's a little bit of black paint that's come off the actual blade surface, but that's to be expected. I mean, this is obviously just a very, very cheap black paint. I wasn't expecting that to hold up at all. What I am expecting to hold up though is the blade. So let's see if we can repeat that process. Alright, here we go. Remember, I've batoned 4 or 5 bits of wood. I've made a fire stick. So it's not a lot of work, but it is, you know, hard work on a blade. So let's just see. Still pretty sharp. Even there, right on the bit where I batoned. Guys, that's not bad actually. I'm fairly impressed with that. Let's try and get into the soft skin here. As you can tell, I'm putting almost no pressure on the blade. Yep. 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 All right. I think that's a phenomenal job. Wow. Okay. So the blade itself, upon inspection, doesn't even show major signs of wear yet, which is kind of interesting. I can see a few more striations now in this light, but they're very minor. I don't see any upright striations from the wood or the feather stick, which is also interesting. Cool. All right. Let's talk about that. I set out today to see if I could go and buy the cheapest knife I could find, full tang, full blade, that fits my hand, and turn it into a bushcraft knife. Now, I think we've done that. This knife is very impressively sharp now. It's fully usably sharp now. I do need to change this paracord bullshit I've got on here, which is just absolutely woeful. It's going to need to be rewoven and reattached. No problem, I can do that. And this sheath does need a bit of work. But guys, from the actual blade perspective, for 20 bucks, that's really not bad. And that means that you could go to a camp shop, get, instead of buying, you know, a Gerber knife for $150, get one of these for 20 bucks, sharpen it up properly, or have someone sharpen it for you, and you've saved yourself 120 bucks. Especially for something you're going to wreck and really put through its paces. There's no point in spending $150 on a knife. Seriously. Even my Schrade was $90. And I mean, you guys have seen me use this and abuse this everywhere. This is a beast of a knife. I don't even think you can call it a knife. This is more of a chisel. I've done everything with this thing, and I've only sharpened it once. The blade's still holding up very, very well. But because this is such a thick piece of steel, it doesn't do fine work very well. So that's what I'm going to use this guy for now, which is brilliant. I love that. Cheers, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions or any other comments, please put them in the comments for me. I'd love to hear from you. What do you guys use to sharpen your knives with? Like, what is your knife process? Are you as obsessed with them as I am? How many knives have you got? As you can tell here, I've got 4, and I've got one more on the way from a new company I've never heard of. They reached out to me and asked if I wanted to test one of their knives, so I've graciously agreed. And I'm very excited to test that out, because that's also in the sort of more affordable category. And now I've got the no-name wonder. I'll think of a name for this one. But yeah, guys, pretty impressed with that. And I'll bring you back when I get the other knife and we can compare all of that together. But yeah, for now, the question is, can you buy a $20 knife and turn it into a bushcraft knife that's effective? Yes, you can.